that was from the UK. I guess
It's
Sammy will be
it's
later from you,
four.
right?
Yeah,
Hopefully, I'm
it's
not
four.
mistaken, and my global geography is not that bad. New York. Hey, John. Nice. Okay, and I'll put here Emilio Greenville. Let's see. Welcome, everybody. Very well. Well, I'm really, really happy. Hey, Michelle from Florida, Sonny, Florida, Tyler from Pennsylvania. All right, very good. Yeah. So it's close to 4 p.m. for you, Sammy. Awesome. Well, for all of you that are just joining in, I'm starting to record. Gavi and I are very excited about this topic. I think it's a staple of HubSpot as user groups. This one and marketing and sales alignment probably are the ones that are the most recurring ones, and for good reasons. I think that lead management is one of the things that HubSpot shines at. Like I think software is built for doing that very well between marketing and sales. And so I think it's definitely something that we are very excited about. We are very excited about also about the turnout. As for those of you that are actually in Greenville, this is a local user group. However, in my experience after COVID, more and more of these events happen virtually, and sometimes people is not used to, or rather choose a topic because of the topic itself rather than location. So Gabi and I are exploring more and more doing these events virtually. We might sprinkle some of them locally, but I think this way we can help way more people that might be interested. So with that being said, let me start right away. Another like thing that I want to cover very quickly, if any of you wants to have a conversation, obviously feel free to post some comments or questions on the chat, and Gavi and I will try to have an eye on that one. But if you have a question, you want to step in and talk, uh, feel free to do so. We will be more than welcome to have a conversation. That's always exciting. So yeah, let me then move into the next one. And I think Gabi, you need to put a one for you too, right? This is me. My name is Emilio Garcia. Gabi and I work at an agency called Bountify. And Bountify is a demand generation agency. We focus primarily on helping B2B companies, usually in technology and telecommunications. And while I'm active in most social media platforms personally, and related to business, the one that I'm usually most of the time around is the LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out there, connect. I will be happy to connect through LinkedIn. And also we create some content related to demand generation in a platform, like a podcast live series. We call it Demand Gen Studio. We have a version in English, version in Spanish. And if you are interested on demand generation in general, feel free to check it out and see if you like it, and follow up. So very well. So what is the topic that we're gonna talk about today? So this is an idea of the topics that we will cover. Basically, we're going to cover lead management fundamentals. How do you manage leads or accounts, when for B2B makes more sense to talk about accounts, and why it's important to involve both marketing and sales in the process, which I think is key, right? So again, one of the things that I believe HubSpot is very good at compared to other tools is that some other tools might be geared toward the marketing department or toward the sales department and activities. And I think HubSpot do a very good job of providing the right tools and interfaces that different teams need, right? The needs of marketing are completely different from the ones from sales. But having that common database for accounts, for leads, and for opportunities that allows for marketing to share what they have learned and the impact that they have had with sales, and also for sales to provide feedback to marketing without actually doing a lot of work to accomplish it, right? So it's just kind of automatic. So I think that work really provides a lot of value for HubSpot users. We will talk about how do you organize it by buyer personas, what is the strategy that you will have there, Some require service level agreements because we will be discussing how two teams work together. Obviously, we will cover some automation when it makes sense, and that's another important thing, right? I said it all the time. People focus a lot, even with tools like HubSpot, on the technology, and forget that most of the time you're just mapping processes that should already exist, and you are doing this for people, not for the machine, right? So, but there are situations where you really have a lot of handwork, manual work, where automation really brings an edge, right? It brings something to the table. And we will end with some standard lead management processes, and obviously how to report results, and some valuable resources that you can review directly on the academy, which again, that's something that obviously most of you already know if you are HubSpot users to some degree. Even in the free version, there's ton of resources. All of these you can learn directly from the academy. What we believe HubSpot user groups bring to the table is the opportunity for people like you to interact with each other, right? Make questions, ask for feedback, share how you are learning stuff in your own portal, and also for people that work at agencies like us to share some of the real work experience that we have. So that's the reason I insist on asking questions, because while what we will cover here is very similar to what you will see on the academy, I can bring to the table the experience that we see with the many customers that we work across the years, and some of the pitfalls and scenarios that we have seen in many times on with clients. So feel free to ask questions, and I will try to answer them as much as possible. All right, very well. So what is lead management? And again, I want to specify that while it's usually called lead management, change the naming convention when you are B2B, because for me, when you are doing B2B management, B2B businesses are using the processes from lead management. They are truly managing accounts or companies rather than people on a individual basis, because usually when you are managing accounts, you really have a buying committee rather than one person. But beyond that, the process lands itself very similarly, which is lead management is a group of processes that start with capturing leads. That's probably the one that everybody is very familiar with, and then nurturing them in a way that you accelerate as much as possible their path to converting themselves into paying customers. And this is another thing that is very important to remember. Lead management is a way for you to capture, prioritize, incentivize, maybe present opportunities for conversions. But at the end of the day, the behavior will be driven by the buyer, right? Every single one of us had experienced the fact that we might be aware of a brand for weeks, for months, and for years, and we will not buy. Doesn't matter how many emails someone sends to us, doesn't matter how many ads we see, doesn't matter how many phone calls we get, because while it's true that there's some persuasion and maybe some hidden things that a potential buyer might not be aware about a brand or a company, at the end of the day, what moves the needle is how painful something is for the buyer, right? When a problem is hard enough or have an economic impact or emotional impact high enough to move us to action, then that's when all that effort what we have done as marketers pay off, right? So we really want to be very careful on not over-indexing for the ability of lead nurturing to actually bring new business. That's something that is important, but obviously involves identifying potential customers, engaging with the ones that are showing some intent, right? While analyzing that behavior to optimize the sales process and really help the sales team to identify the accounts where it makes more sense to focus, because they will be trying to engage with someone anyway. So it would be better if they engage with people that are showing some intent, right? And in just connecting this with HubSpot, lead management is not something that you can do only on HubSpot, but definitely we feel, right, both as partners and customers of the platform, That is a platform that really allow different teams to work together, focusing on their own things. And the best example is that on HubSpot, you can have the marketing team working alongside the sales team plus the service team. And I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, okay. And the service team under one roof, even when they have different, needs and all that. Now, um, talking about some of the fundamentals about participation, right? While it is possible, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but while it's possible for doing lead management only from a marketing point of view or only from the marketing department, um, you will get way less impact if only marketing is participating on the effort, the processes on implementing this. Think about the old days, because I think Mailchimp doesn't do it anymore. But in the old days, when the marketing effort was lead from something like Mailchimp and sales was not participating there, you lose tremendously. Why? Because there might be no alignment, right? Marketing maybe is capturing and nurturing leads that sales is not interested into tackling. And when that happens, then usually you send these warm leads that sales do not follow up because it's not their intent, right? They are not interested in those leads. And the same happens the other way around. All the activities that are happening on the sales side, the contacts that they set up because they're reaching out, the interactions that they're having are touch points that marketing will miss out completely, right? They will have no idea, and therefore maybe new sources of leads and new touch points for nurturing will be missed out completely. So definitely that before talking about technology, one of the key points is that as much as possible, if you're a marketer, that you have conversations with the sales team, ideally with a CEO, to make sure that sales and marketing work together on this lead management process from the beginning. That's I cannot stress enough how important that is. Now, another important thing is that part of the success of lead management is segmentation, right? And I also want to stress that some people will stop short of starting because they say, "Well, I don't have a very good segmentation for my database, so I don't want to start because then I will talk in the same way to everybody." I just want to make you aware that starting assuming that everybody in the database is the same persona or buyer persona, it is okay. For me, if you have a large enough database, I would rather start with something simple like a newsletter, for example, across all the database than never starting because you have not nailed segmentation, right? So if you already have something and you're starting from there and something old and that nobody has reached out in a long time, start with your welcome email. Start with some basic newsletter. It doesn't have to be every week. It can be something on a quarterly or monthly basis. Start getting some engagement. Start seeing if there's some churn, all contacts, you're getting bounces, you're getting all of that. In the meantime, work on the buyer personas, right? And again, here, buyer personas will be something important depending on if you're a direct to consumer or if you're a B2B, right? If you're a direct to consumers, buyer personas are the best way to go. And probably all of you are aware that pretty much you are creating representation of potential buyers based on demographics, behaviors, and motivations and goals. And what's important about this is that ideally you start with one main buyer persona. And if you want to expand that into two, three, or four of them, that's perfect. But ideally, you start with a single one. That will give you perspective into the kind of topics that will be interest and the nurturing strategies that you will have. The way that you capture information about them will be also important because you want to, through questions on the forms and chats and all the lead capture points that you have, to get a sense of who is this person that is filling that form. So that's why it's important. Now, obviously, beyond, and there's something that I want to stress out here too. Again, in the case of B2B, Buyer personas are the second layer of the segmentation, because for B2B, it's more important to know about the firmographics, right? The accounts themselves. Some account-based marketing software and industry leaders call it ICP, or ideal client profile. And the idea is that very similar to buyer personas, you define segments based on firm size or employee number or industry or geography, or a combination of those things plus technology that they use and growth goals and similar things. So it's like giving a personality to the companies that you have. But once you have that, then you layer on top of that the buyer personas that are within the company. And usually they're called the buying committee, because in B2B, usually you have more than one person being part of the account, right? The person that purchased, the person that uses the software or service or the product, people that will be against it, people that will support the change, similar things. So just the twist here in B2B is to look at ideal client profiles and then buyer personas for ways to look for segmentations. So once you have committed sales and marketing to participate, once you have defined your potential segmentation based on buyer personas or ideal client profiles, then you will focus on the strategy, right? And what I want to stress out here is that definitely it's important is as much as possible you dedicate a little bit of time to understand what will be the plan. That's pretty much what the strategy is behind it. Don't overthink it, right? Again, it's better to start with something and build up on the plan as you go, rather than spending months coming up with a strategy and never launching anything. But definitely you don't want to start just blankly with no idea of what is you want to accomplish, right? So you want to set up some common goals. And the best way to start with the outcome will be to start with some lagging indicators, definitely outcomes that have high business impact, like additional revenue that I want to have for the year, or maybe additional sales, or increments on sales on a specific industry or segment based on the segmentation that you're setting up. And then you trickle back to the metrics that will be important for the lead nurturing and lead management strategy itself, right? So you transform those potential new sales into opportunities, those potential new opportunities into maybe sales qualified leads, because sales will have a definition for that. Then you transform that into marketing qualified leads, because marketing will have a definition for that. And in order to get marketing qualified leads, you will need leads. And those leads will come from forms, will come from that the nurturing activity will have an impact on open ratios for emails or visits on the website. So those leading indicators will help you to understand if you're having early success in your initiatives, right? So you have them both. You have the outcomes, because that will align you with sales and between sales and marketing. But you will also want those leading indicators that sometimes are called wrongly vanity metrics, because they are the ones that will give you an idea of success while you build up for the ultimate outcome, right? So that will definitely part of the strategy. Now, another key thing on building up that strategy from the get-go is to set up some service level agreement. And the reason for this is because for those of you that, and I would love to hear, if you work together with the sales or marketing team, and if you're on sales or marketing, any of the two departments. But usually what happens is that when marketing and sales start working together, there are two main problems. One is that marketing will complain about leads not being followed, right? That they are creating or providing these efforts for nurturing, and then some of them will mark them as marketing qualified leads, expecting sales to act upon them, and then they will complain that no action is done from sales, or if there's any action, that it takes a long time, or that there's no feedback to know about quality. So that will be the problem the marketing will see usually from the sales team. But if you turn the table and see from what sales will say that the quality of the leads is low, that they are off target, that they have low intent, that they are not decision makers. They're just like asking for pricing, but they don't have real intent, all those kind of complaints around that they have a more valuable list of accounts or contacts that they want to work on than the ones that marketing is sending to. So the way that you complement those is that you set up a service level agreement, and it go SLA, and it goes both ways, right? What it means is that based on those outcomes that you have, marketing will agree or commit to a certain level of volume being sent for sales, right? And it's not something that you have to have, but it's just like this is the way that we align with the sales goals. But also importantly will be the quality. And quality is just defined by the standards. It's not about good or bad. It's more about, well, if you want good leads, what is a good lead, right? What kind of company, what kind of size, what kind of revenue, what kind of job title or function or seniority are we talking about that will make you act upon that contact if they show some intent, which is the other thing that you also want to make sure that you have a clear understanding from the beginning. What would qualify as a high intent lead? That they fill the you contact us form or the demo request form or something like that. That they download some pieces of content or that they engage with us on social media. Different companies will have different definitions. There's no right or wrong, right? Some sales teams that have a lot of work on themselves will have very high standards. They will say, well, I need high intent, I need decision makers, I need companies on these sizes and these industries. If they are not that, then I'm not interested. And there will be sales teams that are starving for interaction, for engagement, and they're highly dependent on the leads coming inbound from marketing. And they will have looser definitions, right? They will be pretty much take anyone that has showing intent, and they will try to discover the rest of the things on their own on sales conversations. But you just have to agree on that, and that will be the commitment that marketing will have for sales. But it goes two ways, as I was saying, right? So in this sort of case, then we need some commitment from sales in terms of engagement and reach out. Meaning, well, if I send you a lead as we are agreeing to have, right, certain industry and certain buyer persona, how long it will take for you to reach out, and how many times you will try to engage before dropping off the ball, and what will be the reasons that we agree upon for kind of returning or not following up with that lead anymore, right? So that is the part that sales has to agree to, right? It's going to take 24 hours. It's going to take 3 days. I will follow up with 5-7 touches. I will try to reach out on social media. I will try to reach out on email, phone calls. What will be the combination? And we will establish what are the reasons we are not following up with that lead anymore. Like, for example, it was a bad fit, the timing was not right. Similar questions that are usually, part of the qualification process for sales. So again, you don't have to make it super complicated, but at the beginning, establish some ground rules, and that will definitely help you to move forward, right? Now, another obviously key thing, again, as you can see that we are covering the idea of first people. Who should be involved? Should be marketing and sales, ideally. Sometimes customer success is also part of the equation. Second, processes, right? Our definition of ICP, our definition of buyer persona, our definition of service level agreement. Third, it comes technology. This is where HubSpot gets in the equation, right? So you want to use the HubSpot CRM as a way to centralize the information and also offer an easy to use interface for both marketing and sales. And the other thing that you want to do is that you scale these processes, right? The capturing of leads, the nurturing of leads, the prioritization and segmentation. You want to take advantage of automation to reduce manual work, repetitive tasks, and then increase the output of your efforts. But I want to again stress out that automation should be used only when you have proof that your processes work the way that you want and you want to scale. Because if you have a process that is not well tuned, you will scale waste. You will scale problems, instead of scaling solutions. And that's obviously something that you don't want to get into. That's how you become spammy. That's how you become, annoying to the buyer rather than helpful, right? So summarizing a little bit of the process itself, right? How it does look like. There will be a basic definition. Your process might be different, right? You can tweak it to what works for you, but this is a great example of how you can set up that process, right? First, you will need a step where you capture the lead into the database. And here I want to stress out that you will have multiple sources that will make sense for your business, for your company, right? The most obvious ones that are usually digital are obviously forms being filled. That's one big one for many companies. And you will have different stages, right? Forms or high intent, like request a demo or start a sales conversation, and very low intent ones like subscribing to the newsletter or blog, and some in between like webinars and ebooks and things like that. But it's not the only source of leads. You get leads out of chat conversations, right? Nowadays, when you start a chat conversation and put that email, will give you a lead, and you can also make some questions. You get leads out of phone conversations, and I want to stress out that for businesses that still conversations or phone calls, it's an important source of qualified leads. Definitely, you need to have a tool like CallRail or AirCall, anything that's compatible with HubSpot, and obviously using the call features from HubSpot to really record those conversations and give an opportunity for both sales and marketing to better understand what is that people is trying to get out of those conversations in terms of understanding the business, right? Because the beauty of the forms is that you can make questions and have recordings of that, right? But in phone calls, you need something like that to make sure that you get transcripts, and then you can start understanding the needs from that channel. And again, it's not the only one. There's going to be offline conversations, so also chat conversations and on other platforms like Facebook, like LinkedIn, and you have integrations with HubSpot to accomplish that. The latest one, I think, is WhatsApp, which I think for LATAM is quite important, and for other countries outside of the US. So understand pretty well the sources of leads and centralize this on HubSpot. Oh, I forgot, another big one is if you have share inboxes. Share inboxes for me are very funny because most companies have them, but nobody can tell who is in charge of them, right? So really, really important that you integrate your share inbox, your sales ad company or hello ad company into HubSpot, and that you assign a person that is responsible to follow up on conversations. That person doesn't have to have all the answers, just to make sure that those leads are properly segmented and then taken care of, right? And so once you have those leads in the database, then you organize them, right? And this is where your buyer persona ICP gets into play, right? So at the beginning, it might be a very manual process, right? Based on the conversation, you might have some fields or folders or properties on the contact or properties on the account where you set up, well, this contact belongs to this buyer persona, or this company is a certain size or employee. Something that I feel HubSpot do very well for accounts, and I think to some degree also for contacts nowadays, is that it has a lot of information about the companies already. So as long as you have the domain, you get information about the industry, you get information about the company size and similar things. So you can start building lists, right? Using the list tool to set up your list, and those lists will allow you to start implementing segmentation, right? So start manually over time, start automating using a smart list, following the criteria that you define for ideal client profiles or buyer personas or buying committees, and then you can start working on the lead getting communications, right? And again, here, simple ideas. If you don't have any automation at all and you don't have any segmentation at all just yet, doesn't mean that you will not have them. Start with a simple newsletter. I think it's the most effective way to start conversation, to start learning, to start seeing, and usually that newsletter should be catered to showcase, I call it like helping the lead to visit your website in parts or in stages, right? You know how when you are really engaged with a website, you go to the homepage, you go to the solution pages, you understand the products, you go to testimonials, case studies, and actually start a request. Well, most people don't do that. Most people, what we do is that sometimes we heard about a website, we visit the homepage, get a quick idea of what the company does, and then we leave. And if we continue to be interested, we'll start to diving or exploring more the website in detail until we are ready to make a decision and reach out for a conversation or for a purchase. So the newsletter and order distribution channels can be used to accomplish that, right? You want to offer a mosaic of uh, parts of your website. Maybe showcase a solution, maybe showcase a product or a new feature. Also showcase maybe some one or two case studies, testimonials, or things that are relevant, obviously information about the company. Because when you don't have any segmentation at all in terms of behavior or the buyer persona itself, you have no idea what a person will be interested on, right? So if you can showcase all those at the same time, you will get a sense of what people is interest and obviously offer some more options for engagement. As you learn more and more about your leads and you set up things that allow you to track behavior and create segmentation, then you can start breaking down that newsletter and automate it in a way that really narrows it down, right? Like for example, the one of the easiest breakdowns that you can do is to segment leads out of customers, and then you might have a newsletter for leads and opportunities, and a newsletter for current customers, which becomes more of a customer success tool rather than anything else. But it's still marketing, right? It's just that you're marketing to current clients. And obviously you can see now how that will change the interactions, because now on that customer newsletter, you will have maybe new products, new features, cross-sell, upsell opportunities that will be very relevant to your customers, but will make no sense to your leads. And the same goes for industries, right? If you can eventually segment by industries, you can focus on information for education, case studies for education, rather than, for example, automotive, if you happen to have those two industries on the same roof. And behavior, obviously for behavior, if people is engaging with your content a little bit more, then maybe they are more interested on webinars or ebooks or other premium content or in-depth content that you might have, rather than someone is just like browsing just the homepage. So you can also segment by behavior. Finally, based on the engagement that you're seeing on communication, you will discover, right, either because they show intent clearly through a hand raise event like filling out a form, or because based on some lead scoring features, you deem them ready for a sales conversation, and you pass them to sales, right? And obviously the lead makes a purchase either through e-commerce interactions if you are more B2C, or through sales conversations if you are more B2B. Now, I want to stress out that my favorite mode for determining if a lead is ready to buy is that they explicitly express interest, right? I know there are some things that you can do on the automation part where you can, lead score someone, and if they have opened these many emails and visit the website these many times, then someone will reach out to try to see if there's a buying opportunity. And it works. I'm not going to say that it doesn't work, but I feel that in order to get those three nuggets of potential leads that will become customers, you are knowing a lot of leads, right? Because again, I always return to my own experience. I know for a fact that there are times that I highly engage with a website, but I'm simply not ready. I'm just trying to learn more, and I make a choice, and the choice is I'm not ready to reach out, but I already learned what I wanted to. So I think it's important to be respectful of that part, but obviously there's always opportunity to reach out if you feel that's something that needs to be done. So I'm going to skip all this because that's pretty much what I cover, right? Each of these sections, the lead nurturing section. And let me see if there's... So we talked about qualification and segmentation, right? That builds upon those interactions and engagements. And obviously the lead nurturing itself happens over time, initially with newsletters, and eventually you can automate out of actions. And this is the part that I was talking about, the lead scoring and routing, right? So HubSpot is a tool that will allow you to do that lead scoring and that lead routing. Um, and again, um, one way that you can take advantage of it for sales is ideally you wait until the lead show clear intent, fill in a form where they want to be reached out by sales. But if sales is already doing outbound efforts anyway, right? So without your help, they already have a list, they're trying to reach out, they're trying to bring opportunities. Then it makes total sense to use lead scoring as a way of prioritizing which person you're going to reach out first, right? So that's the only moment where I will say, well, yeah, lead scoring is very helpful, because while you will still annoy someone, at least you are annoying someone that will have the highest chances of being receptive to your message, right? So if you're still going to do reach out anyway from sales perspective, because there are some organizations where that's a big component of their revenue generation efforts, focus on the ones that are showing some intent, right? That you have information from the website and from the emails that they are interested on your product. That's something that obviously I want to stress. And along the way, you want to measure success. And this is what we were saying, right? At the beginning of these efforts, the way that you will measure success will be to leading indicators like the growth of the database, how much of the contacts are unsubscribing, bouncing down, which will tell us a little bit about the health and the relevance of the database itself. If you are doing newsletter or email marketing efforts, we will evaluate open rates, click-through rates, similar tendencies. If we are making automations, we are gonna evaluate how many people is subscribing to or enlisting in the automation, how many people is dropping off from them, all those kind of questions. But eventually, you will aggregate these efforts into metrics that are geared toward business, like website traffic, returning visitors, eventually marketing qualified leads, opportunities, and sales. And even you can notch it up a lead by moving away from how many new opportunities you close to how much revenue each of the initiative is bringing, right? So that's also really important to evaluate and see. So obviously, from the beginning, you want to know who will be reporting what and establishing those goals. And you don't have to worry about a lot about like the goal being a specific number. I always use them as a way to at least inform what is the direction you want to go. You learn on the way, and there are some efforts that are going to be treated more like experiments. I hear constantly this idea that I really like about treating marketing efforts like this, like if you are doing um, product research or product research and development, right? You set up a portfolio of ideas, and you set up uh, track points where you say, well, we want to accomplish this in the first 3 months. Maybe at the beginning, you set up the newsletter and send these 3 newsletters, and we want to evaluate open rates and engagement. And if you start seeing early traction, you expand the effort, right? You segment the database, you start sending emails on a more, highly frequency or higher frequency. But if you don't see the traction that you were expecting, and you have competing initiatives that are having more success, then you might stop that effort and focus on other ones, right? Because email marketing, or in this case, lead nurturing, is not the only thing that you can do to build revenue. It's a very important one, but it's not the only one. And so the same goes for automations, or the same goes for creating webinars or similar events that might nurture you leads. Evaluate initially for a short time frame, and scale and focus on the ones that are having success based on the preliminary data, right? Another important thing, obviously, is who will be responsible for reporting what. So you will see that marketing will focus heavily on the things that they control the most, like which is lead generation, right? Obviously, because of those forms and the things that marketing can do to create demand on social media and to capture demand or existing demand on places like search engines. Another important thing that marketing can do is to be in charge of defining segmentation, right? What are the smart lists that we want to build and grow, right? Because there are some industries or some company sizes that we want to focus and grow our presence there. And obviously the lead nurturing portion up to the point where the prospect express intent. And on the sales side, you want them to be focused on qualification, right? That they can right away define what is a qualified lead, and that they qualify leads that are being sent from marketing, and then to report back on that. Um, Defining the criteria for scoring and saying, well, this someone deemed that we need to start having conversations, and obviously managing the whole lead routing, because usually on the sales side, if you have 3-5 reps, you will organize them by location or by industry or some other criteria that will allow them to be of help to the prospect, because they will have a specific expertise either on the geography or on the industry or the size itself, right? So those are the ones that you want to see. Some recommendation that you might have on reporting cadence is that if you have a large team and there's a lot of initiatives that are going at the same time and there's a lot of interactions, maybe you want to have alignment meetings on a way more frequent ways than other companies, right? So weekly might make sense. But if a smaller team, 1 or 2 marketers, and maybe for sales you have 3, no more than 5 sales rep, and you're just running 1 or 2 or 3 initiatives at the same time, maybe it makes more sense to have a monthly meeting where you evaluate the progress of marketing, evaluate the impact that is having on sales and the things that sales is doing, and update projections, update the goals, and how well are you accomplishing them. And obviously, it doesn't matter if it's a small team or a large team, you want to have a yearly review and goal setting so everybody can be aligned for the goals of the year, right? Um, Here, obviously, take advantage of the reporting tools available in HubSpot. And the thing that I like about the way that reporting tools are set up in HubSpot is that you typically have reporting metrics for the tool or the specific initiative that you're covering, like health reports on the email tool or ad reports on the ad tool. That will be more for leading indicators. But then you can use the dashboards and the reports on the reporting section to go after the outcomes, right, on a more holistic way. And I think, Gabby, we have been discussing that maybe we need to do a session for reporting. I think there's so many things that you can report on and customize. So I definitely invite you to explore this tool, because that's another great thing about the tool. If you centralize your efforts on HubSpot, then you can take advantage of all the data that can be cross-referenced between marketing, sales, customer success, and the website itself, right? So take advantage of the dashboards and build them up in a way that you can tell the story, right? So usually, for example, you want to have a dashboard for the marketing efforts, and you have reports that start with the outcomes, and then you go down into the details. That's the way I like that. Some other people start the other way. They start with the details and they end with the outcomes. But you can do the same on the sales side, right? So maybe on marketing, you focus on form submissions, web traffic, number of marketing qualified leads, obviously the emails and open rates and all that. But on the sales side, you will focus more on lead scoring, sales qualified leads, open opportunities, value of the opportunities, and all of that you can build on separate dashboards. So sales management can focus on the sales ones, and marketing management can focus on the other ones. And maybe you build something for the CEO that has a little bit of both and higher level of information, so they can focus more on the business outcomes, right? So I think that's what we have for today, right? Obviously, there's way more things that you can learn about this, and we are going to share at the web page that we have for this event, and in the group that we have on HubSpot, the community group. We're going to share this presentation so you can go and look at some knowledge articles and some academy courses. Usually what I recommend for like getting started with something is that go explore the tool. If you have a question, go to the academy and just look for the video for that tool. Don't try to get the whole course to solve a small problem. So initially, just go for them. But once you have, like explore the tool more and watch a couple of videos to solve some of the more pressing problems, definitely makes sense to go to the course to get the strategy behind, right? To actually see the why of the, for example, lead nurturing or blogging content, right? So maybe at the beginning you just want to know how I create the email template, or how I set up an automation, or how do I add contacts, or add a property. But later on, you want to really go to the course and understand objects, properties, what it means, the lead contact management and all that. So later you can dive. So we will put some helpful articles there for you to review. Um, and now I want to focus on questions. I don't know if there's
We
any.
got, yes, we got 2 points, or
Yeah.
bullet points from Sammy, that you asked Sammy. I will start with the point two, because in order to answer the point one, it is important to start there. He says that, for lead management and personas, do you have a top three of approaches that one should take for a startup?
Yeah, I think the for example, if the obviously it's limited to resources, to be honest. I I haven't found just yet a client that only have one buyer persona or one ideal client profile. Usually they have multiples. They have three. Some of them might have as much as five or six. So there's definitely most of the time a situation where you have multiple personas. But to be honest, most businesses are worried about mainly about one. One of the reasons might be because that is the buyer persona where the product has the most success. This is the example that I use all the time, right? You might have a product that for different industries feel different, not because the product is different, it's because the success that someone has with that product or services is way higher than the rest. And so you get a lot of those buyers just because they are having a lot of success with your product. And that's what your database has the most. So there's always a buyer persona that is like the main one. That might be one reason. The other one is that if you don't have something like that, then usually what happens is that the business and therefore sales have an industry or a buyer that is like the focus for the year, right? Usually, management want to expand in a specific industry, or want to increase business share, or revenue share for a specific industry. So while you have multiple buyer personas, usually there's one that will be top of mind for the business. Now, again, that's the best way that you can start. But if you really are like, I have one, two, three buyer personas, the approach that I will use is to maybe identify them from the beginning, right? But from the content creation perspective or the media, just start with one channel, with one content piece for the three of them, and start looking at the engagement, right? For example, for email, maybe you build the lists, the smart list from the beginning, right? Maybe let me use the industry as an example. I build a list for companies or buyer personas that are in education, and another for finance, and another for automotive, if that makes sense. And then when I send my emails or I set up my automations, are starting for the three lists at the same time. But I want to explore the engagement that they're having, right? Because the list will have, I can look at the engagement by list and start seeing what is resonating with each of them. And depending on the size of them or the engagement, then you can start thinking, well, maybe I need to break down the strategy into three pieces, right? And start working with the three of them, or just pick one and focus on that one. But definitely be really, really careful to choose as narrow focus as you can. Right? I think it's way better to pick the main buyer persona, uh, and start a quick experiment with that one. And if you have success, you extend it to the rest, rather to start thinking about everybody, because the emails that you will have to craft, or the automations that you will have to craft for multiple buyer personas, or for multiple life cycle stages, will be more complex, right? Your work will double or triple um, every time that you add a new person.
Okay. And
Mhm.
uh, following that, asks too, how do you decide with what data, what strategy and actions through which media to take in order to nurture dash convert leads into customers, or it is their best practice for that?
Yeah, yeah. I think data will inform your actions for sure. So there are many things. There are many ways, and again, I will focus on email more than anything. But for example, let us think about the processes. If you think, well, what about capturing leads? If you don't have anything at the beginning and sales and you are open to manage all the channels, I will explore all of the ones that make sense, at least in principle, right? If you already have a form, you have forms, obviously you want to measure forms being captured and making questions there. If you feel comfortable with live chat, set up a live chat. If you don't feel comfortable with live chat, set up something like chatbot that makes questions and then assign someone to follow up. Track phone calls, track share inboxes. There are some of the places that you can track, and then after a few weeks or months, take a look at the volumes and the quality and the engagement that you're having from each of the sources, and then you can narrow it down. You might say, well, we are discovering that most of what we are getting on our share inboxes is not that good, so maybe take it out of the website, right? And focus on forms and chat conversations. The same goes for the chat. The chat is not with the way that you work at, or it doesn't work with your workflow. Just turn it off or keep it on key pages, and then you will focus on forms. Another one that I've seen companies doing with HubSpot is obviously the setting up calendar meetings, right? That's another way that you can get leads, um, if your process for that makes sense. So it's the same, test them, and depending on volume and engagement, you will start narrowing down the channels that make sense for you. For email, right? For nurturing itself, again, on the manual part, I think newsletters are great. Broad topics and messages, and then you can narrow it down by type of content or by segment, right? Maybe at the beginning, just sprinkle articles, videos, events. And as you start seeing engagement, you discover that videos are having a lot of traction or events are having a lot of traction, and you focus on those on the newsletter, or you focus on certain industries or buyer personas, and then you increase frequency. On the automation part, it's all actually quite simple. Is you want to automate the parts of the process that have the highest volume, right? For example, if you have 20 forms for ebooks, for contact us, for newsletter subscriptions, usually there are going to be two or three that bring 80% of your new leads, right? And the other 16 forms will have almost no traffic or no forms being filled. So you want to start with those two or three, right? That's where you start automating. And also, when you start thinking about cadences, people get overexcited about the fact that, well, if I have a form with someone downloading an ebook or subscribing to the newsletter, I'm going to build this super complex setup of one email and then 3 days later. And if they open it, then I will do this. It's not necessary. You can always start with a simple, someone subscribe. Uh, Thank you for subscribing. Here are some articles that might be helpful. Here's some content premium. Start with that. The workflow will start giving you information. Is people opening that? Are they visiting the blog pieces? And if you really are having a lot of engagement from that, then it makes sense to say, well, based on the articles that people are exploring after we send that email or the premium content that they are downloading, it makes sense to add a second step where we will offer another thing that is highly related, and we will branch it out depending on what they are interested on, right? So you use behavior to inform what is the next step on the workflow, right? The same goes for example, automation that are based on behavior of the web of the user on the website, right? Usually your homepage will be the page that have the most traffic, but it's the broadest in intent. A lot of people visit the website on the homepage, but you have no idea if they are clients or if they are looking for testimonials and similar things. So usually you narrow down to the next thing, right? Are they visiting the product pages or the testimonials or the customer information? So if you have a lead that have downloaded some content and then go back to the website, but start browsing the testimonial and customer success story section, that's when it makes sense to give it a high score on the lead scoring tool to say, if sales is looking for new opportunities, I have a lead, they have downloaded content in the past, they are visiting the website frequently in the last 30 days, and they're going to the sections that really show intent. They are looking for our case studies and testimonials. But if you're just going back to the homepage, probably doesn't make sense. So again, from a traffic perspective, focus on people that are showing the most intent and going to the pages that have the highest volume, right, initially, because that will have the highest impact and you will get the fastest information available, right? So I think and for the sales size is very similar. Again, most people try to automate sales tasks, like when they reach out for the first time, or when they want to rekindle some conversations with cold leads. But I will again advise against doing everything for every interaction. Pick something that sales do a lot of the time, that is very manual and that they complain about, and start automating that, right? So your first template might be for the most popular email. Your first document that is shared across the organization will be for the document that is shared the most, right? Maybe a quick review of the company, snippets, all the tools that you have on the sales side, and even sequences. Probably you want to focus on the one or two processes that people do the most and are the most manual, that will benefit highly from automation, if that makes sense. All
All
right.
right, now that's it for today. Says that thanks for your insight, and it would definitely use it.
No, yeah, thank you. And I just want to finish with saying, I hope that everybody found this helpful. Gabby and I will be publishing very soon our next event that, if I remember well, Gabby, is going to be next month, right?
Next. Hmm. I
So
think so.
next month we will cover it. We still don't have the topic yet, but we will let you know right away. Stay tuned to your inboxes for the HubSpot user group for Greenville. I'm really happy that everybody joined us today, and hope you continue to do so for the rest of the year. And yeah, have a great day or afternoon, whenever you are, and talk to you soon.
Have a great
Bye.
day. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye bye.